Happy New Year! This is Gergo, and you're watching Gergo Print 3D. Can you guess what I'm doing here? No, I'm not going to cook it. I like spaghetti better when it's made out of pasta. My aim with my videos is to show you new ways to improve your 3D prints. I post about all aspects of 3D printing: maintenance tips, reviews, printing techniques, and 3D project recommendations. If you like this type of content, please take a moment to rate my efforts. And be sure to subscribe as well. It means the world to a small channel like this. Okay, we're going to leave this spool of PETG in the water for a few hours because I want to see how really wet filament prints. And then we can test my new toy if it can possibly revive such wet filament. I downloaded this test object from Printables. You will find a link to it in the description. Yeah, it does look bad. Blobs and under extrusion at the same time. And stringing. A lot of stringing. Especially at the very top. There is a reason our first idea is wet filament when we see stringing and under extrusion like this. Okay, let's pop this spool into my new fixed dry filament dryer. Put the lid on. The booklet says 2 hours at 65 degrees Celsius for PETG. Here we go, 65 and 2 hours. While it's cooking, let me tell you about this little machine. FixDry must have seen my videos where I complained about my filaments being old and wet because they reached out and offered to send this NT1 model in exchange for a review. Apparently, I said yes to their offer. So, what do I like about the FixDry NT1? For one, assembly was pretty easy. We put the included shroud at the bottom, then put the lid on. The shroud is a good addition to divert the hot air from directly hitting and melting the filament. It works. The booklet offers essential instructions. However, it suggests verifying the input voltage. Despite this recommendation, I couldn't locate any voltage switch on the device. Instead, it came with a non-detachable European plug on the end of a long enough cable, so I hoped it was prepared for 220 volts. I'm pleased with the touch and feel of the device. The weight suggests it is made of quality materials, especially the lid, which is a very thick plexiglass. It is tinted, so yellowing with age will not be too apparent. If anything, the whole unit has this quite retro look to it, with the large flickering digits on the front. I like that it can even dry the big 2-3 kilogram spools or 2 of the 1 kilogram spools at the same time. Of course, if we dry 2 spools, they have to be the same material. I'm a fan of all the alternative filament paths if we want to print directly out of the dryer. No matter how you position your printer, you will find a convenient hole for sure. Besides the vent openings on the top, they drilled 10 different holes, each with rubber sealing, where we can insert pieces of the included Teflon tube to thread the filament through. This convenience comes with some side effects though. See how the piece of tissue is blown upwards over the top vent openings and sucked into these filament holes. Because of the pressure conditions inside the dryer, these holes seem to act as air intakes and cause uneven temperatures inside the device. Of course, the solution is very easy. You can either use a set of M4 bolts to plug them up, or better yet, I printed plugs out of PETG, which will also take care of another small issue with the design. There is a very good seal between the base and the lid. The fit is so tight and the lid is so slippery that I had a hard time removing it. But this is where the plugs come into play yet again. I designed them to also act as little handles that we can grab onto when lifting the lid. Just make sure to secure the plug handles, which go in the side holes, using these little pegs. Okay, getting back to the positives, the controls are nice and simple. We set the temperature and the time, and then it just works. Though, I haven't found any way to modify the set values on the fly. The timer will restart if we make any adjustments. But it's not a big deal in my opinion. Anyway, a big advantage of the fixed dry over other filament dryers that we can set temperatures as high as 70 degrees Celsius, which makes it possible to dry not only PLA or TPU, but PETG and even PC and nylon too. The booklet provides the recommended temperatures and drying times for the various filament types. The flickering that you see is not only on camera. The screen flickers like this in real life too. It can get annoying, but of course we don't need to stare at it too much. So presentation could be improved, but both the temperature and the humidity values it shows seem to be accurate. At least my cheap sensor corroborates the values. It showed 22 degrees Celsius room temperature and 50% humidity before I put it inside. After a while, the values measured were close enough to the values shown on the display of the NT1. I love the idea that they put bearings in the rollers to make feeding the filament from the dryer as frictionless as possible. Granted, feeding flexible filaments like my favorite TPE is one of the trickiest. My first attempt was indeed not very successful. Then I realized how stuck these ball bearings were in the rollers. It was very easy, however, to remove them and lubricate each with a drop of oil. The difference is night and day, right? Look how easy the spool rolls now. A very important positive for me is that the fan noise is low enough. You can only hear it if you sit right next to it. On the other hand, the beep sound that is supposed to signal the end of the drying time is also pretty quiet. You won't be able to hear it from the next room. There is really no danger if you miss it though, since the device will turn off automatically when the timer is up. Although I ended up plugging it into a switchable power strip, since even in its off state, I could see some lights glowing inside. Power consumption is not significant. When set to 50 degrees Celsius for PLA, it was taking about 80 watts in the first hour, and a little even less in consecutive hours when the internal temperature already reached the target. And you can see the dehumidifying also seems to be quite effective. Humidity inside the dryer goes down from over 50% to below 20%. So these are all good, but does it really dry the filament? The recommended drying time is up on our soaked PETG. Let's reprint that stringing test. The first layers look promising. Well, the result after 2 hours of drying is not perfect, but a visible improvement over the wet print. I ended up drying the filament for another 2-hour session, and the results showed further improvements. There was even less stringing and under extrusion. However, it's worth noting that this was a fairly drastic test, and I'm not sure about the chemistry involved. Is it possible to completely revive filament that has been soaked in water for hours? It's good to have a filament dryer, and despite the small problems, I can recommend getting the fixed dry NT1. Lubricating the bearings, painting plugs for the unused filament holes, which also act as handles to make opening the lid easier, and cutting off the power when not in use are all easy fixes. Using the promo code GERGO10, you will even get a 10% discount if you use the link in the description of this video. With all our filaments finally nice and dry, now let's go print 3D.